How do you find your voice? How do you find your voice in this amazing craft that we all partake in? Today I'm going to be sharing my voice, how I found mine. Taking maybe a few ideas, and hopefully you all can add a few of them to your own. I'm going to be talking about ideas such as previsualization, chasing the light, breaking down compositions, talking about the technical aspects of photography. How do you find your photography zen? How do you get into that flow state that we all love to be in? We're going to get into that. I'm in love with nature. After 45, it wasn't 50 years, it's 45 years of photography, the love affair continues to grow. I found a voice in night photography, and by the way, I included this photograph because this image was taken literally about 3 miles from here, just east of here. So there's something about being in nature for me, under the stars with the camera. It's just a beautiful experience. I started shooting night images when I was 14 years old. As a film photographer, the best I could do was do star trails like this photograph here. But I loved it. We'd go out on camping trips, and I would go to bed, and I slept in a tent away from my parents at 14 because I wanted to sneak out with my camera and take photographs at night. I absolutely loved it. And I would take a flashlight, and I would light up trees, and I just had the best time with my film camera. I would wait the 14 days for the film to come back, and I was always disappointed, but hey, it's how I learned. In 2012, when I realized I could get pinpoint stars with a digital camera, the film camera went into the closet, and I never looked back. I actually came into digital just kicking and screaming. I hated it. I didn't want to do it. But when I learned this, man, I had to learn it. And I didn't know how to turn on a computer. My wife was a computer genius. And so I would bring the card in, and I would hand her the card. Let's process a photograph. And so I'd give her the card, we'd put it in, and I'd stand behind her, take up the shadows, maybe take the highlights down a little bit here, and let's do this. And that lasted about a week, and she'd had enough of it. And that was done. I learned how to process my own images thanks to her. She taught me. This was the very first digital photograph I took at night. This was taken in 2011 in the winter around Christmas time. And my family and I, we have a family cabin, a small family cabin in Colorado. And so we were there for Christmas. And after the family all went to bed, I snuck out of the home just like I did when I was 14 years old. And I went, and I knew this old schoolhouse. And this schoolhouse was made in the late 1800s, just above Pagosa Springs, north of Pagosa Springs. And so I went there, and there's no electricity for this. I had to light it up, and I had a plan. I had pre-visualized this photograph I was going to take. I got my tripod set. I put my digital camera on there, and I would press the shutter, and I would take off running with this light. And I would run all the way around it, and I didn't want to make footprints through the snow, so I would run all the way around it, and I would try to go behind the schoolhouse and put lights inside the windows to light up the windows. I failed miserably. I didn't know my camera. And let me tell you something. Knowing this camera, it's so important. I hear it all the time. I press the shutter. It's no big deal. Knowing your camera is so important. It should be an extension of your mind, of your well-being. So the next night I went back, but this time I brought a secret weapon, my wife. And so set the camera up right in my tripod holes that I had made the night before. And instead of me pressing the shutter, now my wife is pressing the shutter, and I can move 12 feet away and start my light painting and have a head start. It took me like 15 or 16 times, but I finally got it. I didn't realize that I have a 10-second timer on my new camera. It didn't have a hole in the top of it where I could put my cable release and press it and turn it and lock the shutter down like my film camera. I didn't understand that. But anyway, I grew, and now I'm taking photographs like this, where the foregrounds are just really clean, and you can make this a 40 by 60. There's virtually no noise in this, and it's completely taken at night. letting my intervalometer run on my camera, sitting and enjoying the night sky while my camera does the work. My camera is literally taking photograph after photograph after photograph while I'm just sitting there under the stars, just enjoying myself. And then all of a sudden a meteor comes by, and because I know my shutter's open, I'm going to capture that meteor. And that's why a lot of my images, you know, I'm taking those moments in time, those special moments that occur in nature. And this is also my voice. I absolutely love near-far compositions. And I understand they've come a little bit out of vogue, but that doesn't bother me any. I love this type of composition, and we'll get into that a little more later. For me, it's so compelling. I'm always searching for this type of image. It was ingrained in me as a child, made famous by the books I would pour through in my home. My mom was an amazing photographer, and she made sure that I had David Munch's books in my home. That wasn't my mom's thing. My mom, the grand landscape, that wasn't her. She loved intimate scenes. One of my other passions is photographing mule deer. I know that sounds crazy, but I absolutely love it. And we'll talk about that as well a little bit later on. Mule deer led me to photograph penguins in Antarctica. And then it led me to photograph moose in the Yukon. And right here in Arizona, desert bighorns. I love desert bighorns, but it's not just about these megafauna type of wildlife photography. Just a simple house finch in my backyard. They're so beautiful. Another passion of mine is photographing petroglyphs and pictographs. It's fun to document them like this, but I prefer to tell more of a story. To me, adding things within their story is so much more compelling. It's the same with dwellings and granaries. They're all beautiful in their own right, but if I can include the surrounding landscape in a photograph, oh, it makes me so, so happy. I get to pass on my passions to like-minded people like you all. I'm a full-time nature photographer for Munch Workshops. I've been with them since 2016. They send me out in the field to scout, and I'm able to get my own photographs. Then clients show up, and I teach the craft of nature photography. I absolutely love teaching. We are known for taking clients to the most beautiful places in the world. Some are iconic, and thank goodness most are not. We usually have the whole place to ourselves, and we sometimes camp in these locations so we can be there to get images like this. And when we're finished taking an image like this at night, we can literally crawl into our tent and go to sleep and wake up in the morning to shoot sunrise. But we're there to take images like this. It's so much fun teaching in the field. Teaching field craft, tripod management, composition, and how the camera, here's the important one, how the camera sees light differently than we do. During the harsh daylight hours, teaching valuable post-processing techniques. We do simple image reviews, of course, or we have our clients watch me process an image, but in my opinion, I think the best way is to actually let them do it on their own with our help. The best way to learn is to do it yourself. This is Bill. Bill's an amazing guy. He's full-blooded Cherokee. Bill had taken numerous workshops from me, and I got a call from Bill one day, and Bill tells me, "Wayne, I have some bad news. I just found out I have terminal cancer." And he said, "I want to photograph petroglyphs so badly. I've been and I've seen them, but I've never been able to photograph them. I really want to do that. I want to learn from you. I understand you have a petroglyph workshop coming up. Is there any way I could join us?" Bill, of course, you know. So Bill came on this workshop, and we spent days photographing petroglyphs. Being able to make people's dreams come true. And now his wife can look at this image, and it reminds her, every time she sees this photograph, it reminds her of Bill. Photography is so powerful. Let's talk composition. So I would rather not think of things in rules of thirds or leading lines, but instead visual weight, spacing, finality, that's a big one with me. And the people that were out with me last night, they're counting how many times I'm going to say tangents and visual flow. So in this photograph, you'll look down here and you'll see these little lines. That's finality. They come to completion. I made absolutely sure that those little lines, there was enough space in my photograph. And then up here where this hoodoo is, that I have enough space up here. In this image, I found this image 2 years before I took this photograph, and I was camping here with my wife and my grandson, and it looked like it was going to be an amazing sunrise, so I went there. And this is how I took this photograph. I brought this so you all could understand. I wanted to talk about tripod management a little bit. What you don't see in this image is there's a cliff right behind me. It's a 12-foot cliff. It's not a cliff, but 12 foot. So I don't want to fall off that. So I'm standing on the edge of it. So what I have to do is I literally have to get my tripod up high enough, the same tripod, and I was like this to get it high enough. And then I had to tilt the camera down like this. And then I had to pull my LCD screen out so I could see it. Anyway, you guys get the idea. And I had to sit there and make sure that my camera wasn't going to fall and make sure that my legs were tight. And this is how I took the photograph. And I'm standing like this, and there's a cliff right behind me. Tripod management. You know, using your tripod to the best of your ability. A lot of times, you know, we want to get lower, and to me, a center column just gets in my way, right? So using your tripod, understanding how to use it to get the best photograph you can get. And the tripod, to me, is a compositional tool. This slows me down. It really helps me work the scene. And what did I do with my clicker?
Is it in your pocket?
Wow, Wayne.
If only the lights were on.
It's in my pocket. Thank you, Jess. All right. Tangencies. That's two. So I'm going to read this because I don't have it up here. A tangent refers to when two objects or elements in the composition appear to be almost touching, or they are touching, or barely overlapping. This creates a visual connection that can be distracting. And most of the time, they are distracting for me, but occasionally, I do an intentional tangent. So this is the night before a workshop, and I'm out there just kind of getting back in the game, getting back in my flow, and out scouting all by myself. And I find this composition. I think, oh, this would be fun to teach. So I'm here and I'm lining this up, and I notice that the galactic center of the Milky Way is coming. It's coming from left to right, and it's also falling. And I notice, this is the cool thing, this is the Dark Horse Nebula. And the Dark Horse Nebula was right here, and it looks like the back legs are literally going to touch the top of the rock, right? What an amazing story, because there's actually wild horses that live in this area. So if I could get that Dark Horse Nebula to rear up on top of that rock, how fun would that be? So anyway, that is an intentional tangent, right? It was fun to do, but most of the time I'm trying to avoid those. But this made, a nice composition. I'm with this photograph, layers, spacing, color palette. And the fuchsia colors in this image are a great split complementary color with the yellows and greens, right? But we look at the spacing that's created between things. And the way I put the flowers, I made sure that the flowers were surrounded by the water and they weren't touching the rock above. Sand dunes. How lucky am I? White Sands is literally 35 miles from my doorstep. 35 miles. I am so lucky to live there. Sand dunes, when I was a kid, I would go there to play in them. Now as an adult, I still go there to play in them. Repetitive shapes, triangles, and textures are always something to watch out for in the sand dunes. And notice there's no sky in this photograph. You don't need a sky all the time. I am so taken with sand dunes. The dunes there can definitely be sensual and moving to me. They're just so beautiful, especially when you get the wind. And this image looks very calming. And I promise you, when taking this photograph, it was everything but. I think those people that love to shoot in sand dunes when the wind is blowing 60, 70 miles an hour, like, I love it. I really do. I want to talk about finality in this scene. So you'll notice this dune over here on the right. You see how this dune comes down and it comes to completion, and I have a little bit of space there? That is finality. If we go over here to the left, this dune is coming over here. I have this little bit of space here. That's finality. I'm keeping the viewer's eye within the frame. What if out in the field, I would have had my frame come to right here against this edge, and I would have cropped it out in the field there? That would have been, in my opinion, it would have left me wanting. My eye would go out of frame. Well, let me just show you. So I cropped this image to show you, and see how it literally is, my eye literally goes right there because I didn't leave enough space between finality. Having finality within a scene, no tangents, and isolating the subject. Sand dunes are a great place to learn composition. So again, you can see this tree. I don't have a tangent with the top of the limbs touching top of the dune. All I had to do is use my feet and walk up a little bit higher in the dune that was behind me to isolate this tree in the shade of the dune. Developing my voice and taking night images to show detail in the shadows. I'm using light to mimic moonlight in my photographs, yet I still have detail in those deep shadows. All my images are taken at night. I wait till after astronomical twilight to finish, and as soon as after astronomical twilight's over, the light stays consistent till astronomical twilight starts again the next morning. And because that light is consistent, and as long as I don't have clouds and I have starlight hitting my scene, I can take images all night, and my exposure times will be exactly the same. I love to think about space when composing an image. And you see this image. This is a very iconic scene, by the way. This is Temple of Sun, Temple of the Moon. And actually, they're iconic, but this scene is not. And finding a composition like this that works with an iconic place is fun to do. I've never seen a photograph like this, but I found these three rocks here and the spacing between them. There's the visual flow of the scene is nice, and you'll also notice if you go around the edges of my scene, and you can see this in most of my images as you're following along this morning, you can see that a lot of them are that way. I try to keep my edges clean to keep the viewer's eye within the frame. And the oranges and the blues working together. I have lived at the base of these mountains for 64 years. I've photographed them for over 45. They have taught me so much about photography. The foregrounds are typically full of clutter and they're chaotic. In a scene like this, really anybody can take a photograph like this. But when you get into the heart of the mountains, to get images like this, and understanding to be out there in the desert when it's at its best. We had great rains in February, so I know in March we're going to have poppies, and it's going to be fun to photograph them. The globe mallow here are just beautiful after we have a lot of summer rains, and getting up high in the mountains to take photographs like this, or taking images like this. I want to talk a little bit about previsualization. I found this tree in the Oregon mountains. This is on the other side. My house is literally on the other side of these mountains. I was out hiking with my dog in the middle of the day looking for a composition, and I found this tree. I'm walking around, and at the base of this tree, there were these chippings, these rock shards all over the ground. Different rocks, but piles of them. So, wow. 400 years ago, a Monzo Indian sat at the base of this tree when this alligator juniper tree was alive. He sat there at the base of this tree and made an arrowhead, and made multiple arrowheads. What a story. Now this made this even more interesting to me. You know, you can't see them, but for me, I just had to go back and photograph this tree. It was an amazing story. So I figured out with an app on my phone that the Milky Way was going to come up right here through the limbs. And I knew that I could, you know, kind of get the peaks of the mountains through the limbs here. I wanted to include the rock right here where that Monzo Indian sat at one time. And I figured out where my lights would be, and off I went with my dog. I got there in blue hour. I composed the scene. I got it ready. We had a nice dinner, shared my dinner with my dog, and waited for nighttime. And I got this photograph. This is not pre-visualized. This is chasing the light. And I'm in my home, and I'm talking to a friend on the phone in the office. When I get this weather report come on my phone and I look at it, I politely said, sorry, I got to go. I hung up the phone. I grabbed my tripod and my camera and I run out the door. And it's almost embarrassing to say, but I literally ran 200 feet from my home to take this photograph. I live in an amazing location. I am so fortunate. Again, these mountains have taught me so much about photography. But chasing the light sometimes always doesn't work out. This scene taken in Colorado in probably 2011, my wife and I had been backpacking for 4 days, and we were pretty tired, and we were going to car camp on this particular evening. This is a place called Stony Pass in Colorado. So we pull up there, and it's pouring rain. Absolutely, we're getting drenched. And I told her, I'm not going to set up the tent. Let's just wait in the truck. It'll eventually stop. So we're sitting in the truck, and of course we're tired and we fall asleep. I wake to this amazing light. So I'm desperate. I grab my camera and my tripod and I run out the door and I'm looking for a photograph. I can't find anything. Maybe I'm still asleep. I don't know. But you look at this image. Look at the flowers around the edges, and there's a big fat nothingness right here. And every time I look at this image, it just, I hurt. And I look at this clump of flowers right here. Why didn't you just walk up there, Wayne, and put those in the center of your photograph? Look at the edges, how clean they are around them. You know, it's funny to me, but we all make mistakes, but chasing the light can be sometimes very difficult. And I think we've all been there when the light's going off and you can't find a photograph to take. And I want to talk a little bit about photographing mule deer and why I love it so much. My great-grandfather, he was a hunter. He loved hunting mule deer. My grandfather loved hunting mule deer. My father as well. And by God, I was going to love hunting mule deer. At 8 years old, I went hunting with my grandfather and my father, and I loved going to the mountains. And I loved the camaraderie of family and listening to the stories from my grandfather and my father sitting around the campfire. It was wonderful. And I couldn't wait to hunt because I heard the stories. It sounded so compelling to me. And at 10 years old, there I was walking through the woods with a gun with my father. And at 10 years old, I killed my first mule deer. And every year we would go. And every year I would love every bit of it except for the shooting of the deer, the killing. When I was 29, I was out hunting with my grandfather and my father just like we'd done for years. It was early morning, right before first light. You could see, and I saw this mule deer walk into an opening. I made a bad shot, a little bit too far behind, and he didn't die right away. I literally tracked that deer all day long. And at sunset, I get to him, and he's laying down. He could barely lift up his head. He's so weak, and he's staring at me. And I'm literally crying. I'm trying to keep it together because I can see him there. And he's staring into my eyes. And I ask myself, I clean the deer, and I pack him up, and I'm carrying him back to camp, the miles back to camp, and I'm still crying. And I'm asking myself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I'm a photographer. I can go out and I can hunt mule deer with my camera. So I get back to camp, and the hardest thing I've ever had to do was to tell my grandfather and my father that I'm no longer going to hunt with them. Do you know how hard that is? It was really difficult for me to do, but I did it. And what I learned was that I could go out with my camera anytime I wanted, and I could photograph mule deer. And I could go anywhere I wanted. I didn't have to buy a tag. I didn't have to go buy a tag and go to a certain place where they wanted me to hunt, right? And I'm not saying anything about anti-hunting here, please, but for me, this was me. And the biggest thing that I learned about mule deer, here's the biggest thing, is I could photograph an amazing mule deer like this guy. I could shoot him with my camera, and then 2 days later, I could shoot him again. And a week later, I could shoot him again. And he's still alive, passing on his genes. That was mind-blowing to me. And I could show my father and my grandfather the photographs. Look what I did. I could print up a photograph and show them, and my deer was bigger than theirs. And what I learned was every deer, living with them and being around them as much as I am, they have personalities. They're individuals just like you and I. And they're such beautiful creatures. I'll go all the way to the Yukon to photograph mule deer. That's who I am. I love mule deer. And the places they live. This is the Oregon Mountains in my backyard. They live in such beautiful areas throughout the West. But I gotta say, throughout the West, mule deer are struggling right now. They're not like whitetail. Whitetail are overpopulated, and a lot of you that live in the East are going, oh God, deer, ugh. They're like rats, you know? But whitetail are different. They're expanding their range. Mule deer are struggling throughout the West right now. I saw this guy one morning, amazing mule deer, first light. I captured this image, and he could care less about me. He wouldn't even turn around to look at me. He knew I was there, but he was hot on the trail of a doe. 3 days later, there he was. He's with the herd of deer, and he's following a doe, and I was with two friends, and we're taking photographs of mule deer, and we see these guys from a distance. We walk way around them, and we get ahead of them, and we find this light that they could walk into. We knew they were going to walk into this light. This guy walks into the light, and he's right behind a doe. I let out a grunt. He stops, and he looks, he puffs out his chest, and we get our photograph. He looks right at my friend. It was amazing. This deer is a warrior. I'm going to zoom in on his face here. Look at this guy. His nose is broken. Look at the scars on his face from fighting. He's blind in his left eye. His ears cut up. He has no hair on his back from fighting. And he has a hole in his throat. When he breathes, moisture comes out, steam comes out. You can see where it's frozen. What a warrior. And he could care less. All he's thinking about is passing on his genes, and he's right on the tail of this doe. And then right on the tail of the bigger buck was this little guy. He's walking, he's following closely behind. He knows he doesn't have a chance, but man, he's learning. They all have personalities. They're all amazing to me. After we photographed him, he put his nose to the ground, and he's right on that doe, smelling her, making sure she's about ready. Mule deer led me to photograph bighorn sheep. I love photographing bighorn sheep. They're so amazing, almost prehistoric in their mannerisms. And look at their eyes, the bulging eyes, and they're so far together to help them find predators. But it's not about the megafauna, right? I mean, what about this dark-faced ground tangent that's in southern Argentina? He deserves it too. And this caracara in southern Argentina, beautiful bird. And my landscape background helps me compose wildlife. Look at the geometry in this branch. Look at the triangles, even the triangles in the flycatcher's, in the top of the flycatcher's head. This is a small bill Delania. And then there's the penguins. And understanding my landscape composition, knowing that I have to move a little bit to the right so I could isolate the penguin with the iceberg that's floating in the ocean in the background. And then putting the penguins into the grand landscape of Antarctica. I'm so fortunate to have been able to go to Antarctica a couple of times. What an amazing experience. It is an incredible place. And you didn't know this, but I've seen it personally, and this image proves it. Penguins can fly. But it's not just about the penguins. It's all the wildlife. This amazing fur seal. This blue-eyed shag. It's just an incredible place. And understanding the repetition of, you guys see the seal right here? See the seal and the iceberg behind the seal? I love that. And all these little guys sticking up in here. It's just, photography. Such an amazing thing. The humpback whales and their bird friends. But it's not just about the wildlife, it's the landscape. The landscape, I've never seen light like I've seen down there. And it lasts forever. The sun just hovering. The sun literally hovering along the edge of the frame. Now my world is complete. DeWitt Jones just walked into my talk. The icebergs. Finding a scene like this and understanding. We're in this Zodiac and there's 7 of us. And I'm the pro in the Zodiac, and I'm the one telling the Zodiac driver what to do. And all of a sudden this cloud just opens up and the light comes down and it beams down and shines, and it makes this perfect vignette, this natural vignette of this scene. And I'm screaming, stop, stop, stop. I know we literally have seconds to get this photograph. Knowing your camera, knowing how to get to those settings to get an image like this. It's so important. And then we moved on and we photographed these same icebergs. And trying and begging to get your Zodiac driver to line you up so you have spacing between the icebergs is nearly impossible. And this image, we knew. And I found on the app on my phone, we were going to have a full moon. But the mountains there in Antarctica are so large, we knew that the moon was just going to hover right along the edge of the horizon. But it was just so frustrating because we knew it was there, but the mountains were blocking it. Everybody went to bed. There was only a few of us out on the deck, and all of a sudden it appeared. It was just magical. I mean, look at this moon. What it's doing is it's refracting as it's rising up through that frozen atmosphere. The atmosphere is just pushing it down, warping it. To be able to capture a scene like this, where's Luke? We were giving each other high fives. There he is. It was amazing.
And then a whale started breaching.
Yes. and that's true. And he got a whale breaching with the moon. Oh, I didn't get that one. He should be up here. Antarctica is beautiful. How do I take wildlife photographs like I take a landscape image? So we landed on shore. We took the Zodiacs from the ship and landed on shore. And I'm looking at this scene, this beautiful light, and I see this scene. And the first thing I noticed, these Gentoo penguins, they were just getting out of the sea and they're heading back to the rookeries. And they're just walking by this over and over again. They were coming out of the ocean. So, this is a great scene. So I take like 7, 8 people. Let's go over here. Let's photograph over here. We put our tripods down. We put our cameras on our tripods. We really work the scene and we get it perfect for a landscape photograph. And here they come. Here comes the penguins. The penguins come right into place and we focus on the penguins. We take that image. They walk away and now we focus stack our scene. How do you take a wildlife image like you do a landscape photograph? And this may not be for everybody. I can't enter this in a wildlife contest. I'm not going to enter a contest. I don't care. This is how I photograph. I want to be honest about it, right? This is how I do it. This is my voice. Same thing. Southern Argentina, this beautiful rain. I have this tree snag. I know the birds are going to land on this snag. So the rain was coming down and the sun was shining. I focus on this bird. I'm at 840 millimeters, f5.6. I focus on this bird. He's the only thing going to be in focus. And that's okay because I want that beautiful bokeh of the rain and the beautiful, lovely bokeh of the forest behind it. But I can't get both birds in focus. So I move my focus point over, focus on this bird over here on the right, take that image. And then in post, I put them both together. Everything's in focus. Those birds are perfectly sharp. But again, it's that moment in time. This is my voice. It may not be yours, but it's mine. This scene. Is this a real image? Can you do this? 1,200 millimeters. Did the bird really fly through the moon? Yes, the bird absolutely flew through the moon. We're at Bosque del Apache leading a workshop. There's thousands of birds flying through the sky, and all of them are going through the moon. And you guys, we got to do this. We bring them over. Everybody sets up, gets the moon in focus, and we wait. And the birds look like they're coming through. You focus on the bird, you get the bird. Here's the raw image. This is the raw photograph. The moon is not sharp, but the bird is tack sharp. Again, this is straight out of camera. The bird flies by, I take another photograph of the moon. The camera doesn't move. The moon had set a little bit. If we go back, you can see how the moon dropped because it's setting. The moon dropped. But this is fine. This is the way my eye sees it. I want them both sharp. The same image, this is exactly how it was taken. The people in our workshop got this same photograph. This is my vision, and I passed it on to them. They got it, and it was funny because one of the guys said, I preferred the moon blurry. That's awesome. That's his voice, right? That's cool. But this is mine. Same thing, focus stacking birds as they're flying away with the setting moon, this tiny sliver of moon as it's sharp. This is a focus stacked photograph, just like I do my landscapes. How many images is this? It's one photograph, one image. Because I'm shooting at 280 millimeters, I don't need to take a bunch of different images. Everything's going to be in focus with the aperture that I chose to shoot. That's all I needed. It's good enough. There's nothing more fun for me than getting up early in the morning, getting a cup of coffee before sunrise, getting my dog, and going out and sitting in my blind in my backyard. I love it. This is how I hone my skills. House finches, exactly the same way I took those other birds that were sitting on the branch. I focused on the male house finch on the left, and then refocused on the second female house finch on the right, and took this image. From my backyard, I just threw these in because I like them from my backyard. Scale quail in my backyard. This canyon towhee, beautiful bird, taken in my backyard, sitting in my blind with my dog. My dog just sits there, he's just like, looking at the wildlife. It's awesome. It's awesome. Gamble quail as he's walking through these prairie zinnias. And again, I love this. This is the most beautiful bird I've ever seen. This simple house finch. As that beautiful bokeh coming through, that light coming through, it's just amazing. Taken from my backyard. And this from my backyard. This guy coming in trying to eat all those beautiful creatures I just showed you. Northern harrier male, the gray ghost. And this guy, a Chihuahuan meadowlark. You cannot get close to these, but this guy could care less because I'm in a blind. Blinds are so much fun to shoot in. I really enjoy it. And what about this guy, this great horned owl taken at sunset, sitting in my blind in my backyard? These are the lights from Las Cruces. They're 10 miles away, my hometown in New Mexico. The beautiful bokeh from the lights, 10 miles away, 840 millimeters after sunset. And of course, my favorite, the mule deer in my backyard, taken from my blind. And this guy. Ha! No, it's not wildlife. But this is why I threw this in. Because I use him to practice on all the time. You know, use your dog, use your cat. If you live in the city, you know, I don't have anything to photograph, but yet you're going on a wildlife vacation or a workshop, whatever you're doing. You use your dog or cat. It's so much fun. I'll take him out there. Sit, Gus, sit. I walk 1,000 feet away from him. He's sitting there looking at me. I just do that little whistle, and here he comes, and I'm just 20 frames a second. Photographing Gus helped me get this photograph of this snowshoe hare in Colorado. I live in New Mexico. I'm close to Bosque del Apache. How lucky am I? I really am. And I have fallen in love with sandhill cranes. They're amazing birds. They're incredibly graceful. They're faithful to each other. And they're extremely loud. You go home at night, you can hear them. You can't fall asleep because they're still in your brain. Fall colors make for magnificent backdrops. You have the juveniles and the adults. I have grown quite fond of these birds. I think they're absolutely beautiful. They're so graceful. I want to talk a little bit about patience, about understanding how sometimes our landscapes aren't always at their best. They're like us. They can be a little grumpy when they don't get enough water. I think we all understand that. The people that went out with us last night, how the desert maybe wasn't at its best, but we still had fun. We talked about composition. A few people got some nice images. So I found this group of claret cup hedgehogs not far from my house, and I was ecstatic. Not this year, because they weren't all going to bloom at the same time. For claret cup hedgehogs to bloom all at the same time, you have to have good moisture in late winter, and they're not going to do it. The second year, here we are again, they're not blooming at the same time, same group. The third year, now they're starting to happen. And these little guys over here on the right, they're going to bloom in about 3 days. And so claret cup hedgehogs will stay in full bloom for about a week. And I know that now all I need is good light. And on Earth Day, it happens. My wife took this phone shot of me here taking this image, but I had 2 rainbows in the sky. Wow, full claret cup hedgehogs, and this is the image I got. Understanding and working a scene. It took me 3 years to get this photograph. And I want to talk a little bit about this because I think it's important of how I got this photograph. I'm going to bring my tripod over here and I'm going to pretend like you guys are claret cup hedgehogs. And I'm going to set this up the way it was, kind of. And what I had to do, and again, this is knowing your equipment, right? So it looks like my camera was set up just like this. I took it portrait mode. I didn't. This is how I took the photograph. I was like this. How was that, Wayne? Well, I took it at 35 millimeters because I didn't want the mountains to appear too small. If you take it at 14 millimeters, and that was the only way to get all these mountains would appear tiny. So what I did is I took it at 35 millimeters, and now I focus stacked. I started my focus points through the scene till I got about right here. The mountains are probably cut off in my image. And once I got to infinity, what I did is I did this, and I took another image. And it was raining, so before I took the next image, got my cloth, wiped off the front element, took the image, raised it up, got the cloth, wiped off the front element, took the image, and did this over and over and over again. I would come back, recompose, focus stack, do it again, wipe it off, take it off, before the rainbow disappeared. Thinking outside the box, knowing your equipment is so important. Because I had no idea I was going to have a sky like this. I had no idea I was going to have rainbows. So I had to think quickly before they disappeared to get this photograph. Right? This should just be an extension of your mind. That's all it is. It's just a tool. It's just a tool. Taking scenes like that in my backyard led me to capture photographs like this, high in the Andes, the Chilean Andes, or in the Bolivian salt flats. That said, New Mexico is still my true love. We lead workshops in northern New Mexico, and my wife, like I said before, she's amazing at processing. She's taught me everything I know, my wife has. And she was with me, we were scouting for a workshop, and she's the one that found this tree. And she understood when she saw this tree, how the tree, you see this bend in the tree? How it mimics the bend in the river? I was so excited when she showed me this. But I had an issue because when we were there, the sun was setting behind the tree. It was deep in summer and the sun was setting behind the tree. I had to wait like 3 months for the sun to moon back here so my photograph would be well weighted. I needed that sun there. And if I would have moved further to the left, then I would have had too much space between the river and the rock. Remember the connection, but we don't want a tangent? Same with this. I needed that connection for the tree and the river, right? So I had to wait 3 months to go back to photograph it. This image, pre-visualized, I had a client who loves this petroglyph. This is her favorite petroglyph. And she asked me, Wayne, could you take a photograph of this petroglyph for me at night with snow on the mountains? I could do that. I can do that. So off I went, and I had a bit of a moon. The moon lit up the scene, and I used a light, and I lit up the petroglyph with the little light, and I got the photograph, and I was really happy. It was about 12:30 at night, and the moon was setting behind me, and there was a mesa right behind me, and I couldn't see the moon. So I thought I'd walk up on top of the mesa and see if I could find something else. I walk up there, and this is what I saw. The moon was setting underneath these clouds just like a sunset, but I had stars. Woo! Awesome. So now I got to find a composition. So I'm running around like a madman. And again, you know, this is chasing the light. But I got lucky. I found this amazing notch to put the moon in, set up my tripod, got the camera up, focused on a star, boom, got my photograph. I knew my camera. It took me 10 seconds to do this once I found my composition. And then I had the time to light up the front, this amazing panel of petroglyphs, to light it up after the moon had set. And then I focus stacked this and put this together in post. It's those moments in time. This is my voice. And I don't do many star trails anymore. I did so many of them back in the day when I shot film that I kind of got tired of it. I want pinpoint stars, but an image like this is screaming for it. So 2 years in the making of trying to get this photograph. I would go here over and over again, and I always had clouds. But on this particular night, camping with my wife, I didn't. I went there early, and my wife and I hiked into this spot, and I set up my camera. Astronomical twilight was over, and I had this beautiful moon to help me light up the scene, and I put some lights on the petroglyph, and I took the photograph, and then I just turned my camera on and let the intervalometer run. I took hundreds of images to be able to put this together in post. And then I went back to my camper. We had a nice meal, and I went to bed. The next morning we woke up after sunrise. It was harsh light. We walked out there, and I grabbed my gear, and the battery was dead. But I got my photograph finally. And I want to talk a little bit about star trails. For me, personally, I love the old film look to where the stars are not as harsh. I'm sure everybody's seen star trails where they're really harsh and in your face. Looks like a 1969 psychedelic poster a little bit to me. But the foreground is the story. The foreground should always take precedence for a landscape image. It's a nightscape. That's for me, and that's my voice. This is my family. I'm so lucky to have these people in my life. We spend almost all our time outdoors. My daughter-in-law, my son, my wife, my dad. By the way, my dad, he's got his arms up. He doesn't hunt mule deer anymore. So he goes out with me, and he loves mule deer. But he goes out with me to photograph mule deer sometimes. So much fun. And this is my grandson and my mom who taught me about photography. 1972. 5 of us in this little tiny trailer. However old I was. And now today I'm still doing this, exactly the same way I did back when I was a kid. And this is probably the best compositional tool I have. It gets me out there and it gets me where I need to be. This image right here, we were here because there's petroglyphs all up in those rocks behind us. And being able to get out in places like this and stay there and not spend that time driving back home or going to a hotel room, to me is so important, right? And when we're doing workshops, we camp a lot of times out there so we can be there amongst our subject matter. I took this photograph in that same day we were camped there. This is at sunset. I went back to eat. I went back at night. I took the same photograph at night. I go back and I go to bed, and I wake up the next morning and I take this photograph at sunrise. Getting out there helped me create these photographs. I want to talk a little bit about the apps I'm using. I use SkyGuide, and I use SkyGuide to basically find all my celestial events, like where the Milky Way is going to be in 2080. I'll be around by then, But it'll allow me to find different things like where the sun's going to rise, where the moon's going to set. I love SkyGuide, and the reason I love SkyGuide is because it's super accurate. The GPS, you just press a button, it pops into place. Where an app like PhotoPills, and don't get me wrong, PhotoPills is an amazing app. It should be the photographer's Bible. PhotoPills is great, But you have to manually line up everything yourself, no matter where you are in the world. And if you know how to do that, that's fine. But I love SkyGuide because it's so easy. But that said, there's so much goodness in PhotoPills. And here is my most important app that I have. It's Gaia GPS. Gaia GPS allows me to go out and find a composition. I can mark it. I can mark a waypoint. I can take a photograph with my phone of my subject that I want to shoot later, and I can make notes. And I could put all this in Gaia. And most importantly, Gaia gets me back to my vehicle or back to my camp in the middle of the night.
Especially in the sand dunes, right?
Yes, in the sand dunes, absolutely. So here I am out scouting in the middle of the day. When I'm out scouting in the middle of the day, I always take a camera. To me, this is really important. A lot of people will just take their cell phone or they'll just go out just scouting with nothing, and that's fine. But for me, I like looking through the viewfinder. A wide-angle lens or a longer lens looks so differently than it does looking through with just your eye. In mountains, my backyard, middle of the day, I have all my equipment, just having a good time out scouting. And while on this particular day, I find this guy. Wow, another claret cup hedgehog. I'm in love with these guys like I am deer, I guess. But anyway, I find this composition. This photograph I took, I put this on Gaia, okay? I marked a waypoint, and I knew that in 1 month, this claret cup hedgehog was going to be full of blooms. All I needed was a day with good light, and that day happened. So I had an hour to hike up to the top of this mountain to get the image, and this is the image I got. Same flower, same place, but look at the difference, right? Incredible. Taken in the middle of the day, same hedgehog, but now shot with my camera instead of a phone, focus stacked in beautiful light, right? So I want to talk a little bit about this type of composition. This is a near-far composition. When I was a kid, like I said, my mom made sure I had the books, David Munch's books in my home. His images were ingrained in me. My mom could care less about photographs like this. She really couldn't care less. Elliot Porter was her favorite photographer. She loved intimate scenes. She loved taking photographs of trees, making order out of chaos with intimate scenes. That was her deal. But she knew I loved David Munch, and she knew that I loved the grand landscape. I mean, my God, 14 years old, and this is a true story. I would walk around in the desert with my camera by myself, and I would pretend I was David Munch. I really would. It was so much fun. But I want to talk a little bit about this kind of composition, or composition in general. A lot of photographers will say this is formulaic. But think about that. Aren't most compositions, don't they have some type of formula to them? I believe they do when you're thinking about them as a photographer, and this is my voice. And that's fine for me. And I don't really care if other people, if they like doing other things, that's fine. Like my mom, you know, that's okay. We all have our things, and we all need to understand that. We all have our loves. And I don't care if this is in style or not, this is what I love to do. This is something my mom would photograph. I absolutely love taking images like this. Every time I see an image like this, or I take a photograph like this, it makes me think of my mom, and I love that. She was amazing. But it's not me. This is my mom. Or an image like this. Really beautiful. This is me, though. This is my voice. That whole near-far thing. The visual flow of a scene. This is me. And this is me. This is my voice sitting out in the middle of nowhere at night, waiting for the galactic center to come right into place, with Jupiter and Saturn in the shot. Oh, makes me happy. And I want to break down this composition a little bit and what I'm trying to do visually as a photographer. I'm trying to keep the viewer's eye moving throughout the frame. And you'll notice these rocks down here in the bottom, they're almost cupping this tree, right? To me, this is more than just an image of a tree or a butte in Utah. If you see the visual flow here, the rocks are pointing up to the tree, and the tree's leaning to the right. Most of the branches are going to the right, and the clouds are pushing your eye down into the butte. So that you have this circle pattern going on, right? And if you look around the composition, it's fairly clean. right? And I want to talk, what word am I looking for here? I want to talk a little bit about tension. Some photographers are absolutely amazing of figuring out how to put tension in an image. That's not me. There's enough tension in the world that's a little bit different, I think, but I like saying that. There is enough tension in the world, and I'm trying to create peace in my photographs. Those people that can pull tension off, I admire them so much, and I love their images. Absolutely love it. But again, this is my voice. Mark Much and I were up scouting for a workshop, and we were going to take our clients up here, and I found this beautiful scene of these flowers, and I knew where the sun was going to set because of the app on my phone. So in the middle of the day, I set my tripod up, I set my camera up, and I waited. I had hours before the sun was going to set, but I don't care. I love to just sit and wait and see how light is going to play across a scene. And while I was sitting there, all of a sudden the pikas start running around at my feet, and the marmots come out. So, wow, that's cool. I'm going to get my second camera, put my longer lens on, and while I'm waiting, I'm going to photograph pikas. So understanding my wildlife settings versus my landscape settings is completely different. I need to follow the eye of that pika as it's, sprinting across these rocks, boom, 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 bounding to take its catch back to its den. And the cool thing, photographing marmots doing yoga, so much fun. While I'm sitting and waiting, and then the pikas became so, they almost, it's like we knew each other, right? They were getting so close to me, and I'm able to capture these beautiful, intimate scenes of these pikas, amazing. But this is why I was here, to get this photograph. I got this photograph when that sun just came right into that little gap between the clouds. I got my photograph in the sunset. I turned around, and Mark and I shot this amazing alpenglow that was going on. And then we just waited, had a nice little dinner there at our vehicle, and we waited, and we captured this image with a quarter moon lighting up the Grenadier Range in the San Juan Mountains with stars. And then the cool thing is 2 days later, we take the workshop up there and we relive the whole experience with them. I was leading a workshop at Bistai, and we have this guide, and we go in and we photograph shiprock. And this was our first night. Everybody's so excited to photograph the Milky Way behind shiprock. We get there and it's just clouds, 100% cloud cover. Everybody's so disappointed, and I'm begging people, patience. Patience. It may not happen. We have our composition. Let's just wait. And we waited and we waited. An hour goes by, and all of a sudden the sky opens up and we get stars between the clouds, and 10 minutes later, boom, the clouds just covered the sky. But in my opinion, this is so much more compelling than just having a sky full of stars, having those stars poke through the clouds. Everybody was ecstatic. Patience as a landscape photographer. Having patience. I found this amazing petroglyph. This is a llama giving birth. And this is in the Chilean Andes. And this petroglyph was created by the Inca people hundreds of years ago. I found it in the middle of the day, and that night my workshop started, and I couldn't go back there to photograph this. And I thought about it for a year. And I was going back to lead a workshop, so I went early. And the whole reason I went early was to take this photograph. I couldn't wait. I thought about it for a year. And just standing in the presence of this amazing petroglyph, getting this photograph that's hundreds of years old. But think about it. The starlight that's hitting my sensor is 28,000 years old. 28,000. It's so humbling. Photography is so beautiful. And then later we took our workshop, we photographed this scene. And the cool thing is, the locals there call it the llama, not the Dark Horse Nebula. And if you look at it, you see this neck and see the head. I even go upside down and I can't see the Dark Horse. All I see is a llama. And that's what they call it there. It's so cool, but it's upside down. And then days later, we take our workshop and we're standing in the largest salt flat in the world with miles of water that's only a half an inch to an inch deep. And we're standing in this water with the Southern Cross right in front of us. Stars all at our feet. God, amazing. Your night images don't have to be about the Milky Way. It's about your subject. And this amazing Navajo defensive site that was built on this big rock here, this doesn't leave me wanting a Milky Way in the photograph. It doesn't need a Milky Way. It's about my subject that I photographed. This image at White Sands, this is a comet atlas. And when I knew the comet atlas was going to be there, and it was so cool because the comet atlas was going to be at its best while we were conducting a workshop at White Sands. I went out early and I found this composition. But again, comet atlas, even as important as it is, it's playing second fiddle to the landscape. And this photograph. My best advice to you is have your shutters open. We're doing a workshop in Colorado. This is the Colorado Wildflowers workshop. And we're taking this night image up at Stony Pass. And we're waiting for the Milky Way to move further over to the right. And we're taking foreground shots, which were 4-minute exposures of the foreground. When all of a sudden I see this red orb in the sky and it's floating through the sky. I have no idea what it is. I say, everybody stop, turn off your cameras, go immediately to 13 seconds and photograph your sky. Hurry. Everybody did it. Everybody knew their cameras. And this is the image we got. We all thought we shot a UFO. We were hugging each other, high fives. We just photographed a UFO. It was the Falcon rocket that had launched earlier from Cape Canaveral. And this is its second phase as it's exploding, going out into the atmosphere. Have your shutters open and know your cameras. So this bird here, this is an example of previsualization with wildlife. Can wildlife be previsualized? Absolutely. I set up my camera in the middle of this forest because there's a snag in this forest that sticks up. And inevitably, like every 10 minutes, a bird is going to land on that snag. I know it. So I set up my camera and I make sure I know where the bird's going to be. And you see this in the background, you see these trees that are back there. See the dark edges around the bird? I made sure the bird was inside that little hole, that little frame it could be in. So the bird was well framed. What I didn't plan on the sun to shine while the rain was shining again on the raindrops, and a bird singing in the rain. Can you pre-visualize this? Absolutely. Knowing that a blue heron is a better fisher than American pelicans. And knowing that a blue heron, every time he catches a fish, is going to have to scramble and fly away as fast as it can because the heron's won his fish. Knowing that this is going to happen. It happens every single time. Knowing wildlife, being intimate with them and studying them. Can foxes be pre-visualized? Absolutely. And having a long enough lens so they feel comfortable enough with you to fall asleep in the sun after they've hunted and brought food back to their young ones. Fox is hunting, the fox catches, takes the mole back to the young and feeds them. All this, understanding foxes. Can coyotes be pre-visualized? Absolutely. This same coyote and his two amigos, they hunt in this place every single day. Every single day. So just sitting and waiting, it may take a week, but you could absolutely pre-visualize photographing a coyote. A wood bison. Wood bisons love to be out in meadows in the Yukon. They love to sit in meadows and wait for that first light of day to warm them up, get that ice off their back at sunrise. This cannot be pre-visualized. A calf mimicking its mom, being ready at the camera to capture an image like this. And a lynx absolutely cannot be pre-visualized. You're the luckiest photographer in the world. Thank you. An image like this can be pre-visualized. And your landscape background, understanding that this pathway, that this fox takes us every single day. And see the space here from the trail, leaving that space? And we go up here, the same amount of space. Up here where the trail's leaving, it's not leaving the corner. I have that same amount of space. And having the ears below the trail so there's no tangent, giving the image three-dimensionality. I want to talk a little bit about this tree. I found this tree like 7 months before I photographed it. I was scouting with Mark Munch and we found this tree and I fell in love, absolutely fell in love with this tree, and I had to go back and photograph it. But the sun had to set at a particular place as far as I was concerned. So I talked a friend into going out with me 7 months later. And here I am, I'm photographing this butte. I'm not photographing the tree. I'm actually looking at the light at the tree. But this butte in the background was being pummeled by lightning. So do I photograph the butte or do I photograph the tree? I had a dilemma, a big one. But I had 2 cameras. So I set my second tripod up here and my second camera. I put my intervalometer on and I let it run and I went back to my tree. So I'm going to see if this will do it. I'm going to play this, maybe. There we go.
Here we are with Munch
I don't know
Pro
if you guys can hear this.
Suggs, having a mild religious experience in the San Rafael Swell in Utah, scouting
It's not mild.
for a trip. It's not mild.
It's not mild.
It's not mild. Wayne is very excited with this amazing juniper and this incredible sunset that he's been shooting for the last half an hour. Turn around and smile, Wayne. All right.
Anyway, this is the tree. So this is pre-visualized. I thought about this for 7 months. The tree's going to be dark with the sun setting behind it, so I need to put lights on the tree. I need to light up the tree. What I didn't think about was there was going to be lightning on the butte. So I thought very quickly, I took the blinders off and I photographed the butte being pummeled by lightning. Just lucky enough that the intervalometer, one of those many thousands of photographs that my camera took, that it captured this. But we weren't finished. We also planned on photographing this tree that was right behind us with the Milky Way behind, but we had an issue because of the storm. All these storm clouds could cover up the Milky Way. But something happened that I had dreamed about for years, since I was 14 years old, going out and shooting the night sky. Lightning with the Milky Way. This is a 13-second exposure, and in that 13-second exposure, 2 lightning strikes. Okay? The best day of photography in my life. I mean, in one day, I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to camp out for 2 weeks to photograph this. The first day I was there, this never happens. But man, I tell you what, we went back to camp at 12:30 at night and celebrated with a beer. And as far as we were concerned, we were the best photographers in the world. And I was sitting there in a chair and I was drinking my beer and watching this storm go off in the distance when an ant crawls up and bites me in my nether regions. It brought me right back down. I'm not in love with my photographs. I'm absolutely in love with the places that this amazing craft has taken me. If you're in love with your images, you can become blind. You don't look deep within them to find the faults, to find how to improve them. I try to make sure that every time I go out, thanks to DeWitt Jones, I have juice in my camera. All right? An incredibly valuable lesson. Making the most of every single moment. Take in the smells. Feel the chill in the air. Hear the birds singing in your photographs. Try to make all this reflect in your images. Can you hear the sound of the water pouring off this humpback's tail? And when you process a photograph, you listen to Celtic folk music to help you give your image that romance that you felt when you were there visiting that country and taking this image. The image is your image. It's your voice. It should take you back to that moment in time. It should fill you with peace where you can almost hear the clouds moving through the stars. It's about the experience. I don't love the photograph, but I'm damn sure in love with that subject. Be passionate and pass on that voice, the voice that you've created. Use your voice to protect, that subject that you love. Every one of us should use that voice to protect this, and that voice is nature. I'm still searching for my voice. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to grow. Photography is something for me that cannot be mastered. To call yourself a master means that you no longer are growing. You're no longer learning. If you ask Sarah Moreno if she's a master, if you walk up to her, Sarah, you're a master, she would laugh at you. Every day she goes out with her camera, she continues to grow. I will never be a master. I'll never reach that point in my photography. I want to continue to grow, continue to experiment and develop new techniques. I'll never be a master, but I'm sure going to die trying. I have 2 more images here, and I'm going to tell a story. And it'll lead up to, in my opinion, one of the most important photographs that I've ever taken. It means a lot to me. I flew to Hawaii with my wife, and we went there to visit her sister. I also went there, DeWitt Jones invited me, and I went there, and I jumped from a plane from Maui to Molokai, and I spent 3 days with him, had a great time. And then I went back to Maui, and my sister-in-law lent me her old Toyota truck, all rusty, and it was perfect. And so I spent 2.5 weeks driving around Maui, photographing Maui. And while out in the middle of the day, I found this snag that was out in the middle of the ocean. I knew I had to photograph it. But the reason I wanted to go photograph this, because it was closer to the image that I just had to get. So I left my sister-in-law's home and I photographed this probably about 3:30 in the morning. I got that image, I got back in that old truck, and I drove to Honolulu Bay. And the reason I was at Honolulu Bay, I have this friend, Shane Barber. And Shane had a son, Austin. Austin was 19 years old. He died of cancer at 19. His favorite place in the world was Honolulu Bay. He loved to surf. He loved the wildlife there. He was absolutely in love with whales. And he loved the beauty of Honolulu Bay. So I had to go to Honolulu Bay and take a photograph for my friend. I had to go there and capture something that he and his wife Lori could put on their wall. And every time they saw it, they could think of Austin. So off I drove, and I get there to the bay, and I put on a wide-angle lens, and I'm walking through the most beautiful, beautiful rainforest as I'm making my way through, and I can't find an image. The light's amazing, and I can't find an image, and I'm getting frustrated. And I make my way out to the beach. Beautiful beach. I can't find an image, and I'm getting, this is so important. I gotta capture something here. I'm leaving the next day, and I gotta get something. I go and I just said, Wayne, okay, calm down. You've been here before. I go and I sit down on a rock. And all of a sudden, out there in the ocean, I notice there's surfers out there having a great time. So I put on a longer lens and I start photographing surfers. I'm not a surfing photographer, but hey, I'm having fun. These guys, I'm taking their image, and all of a sudden this storm comes up and the wind is blowing, and it's blowing this beautiful spray over the top of the surfers. So wow, that's beautiful. And then of course I'm in Hawaii and a rainbow appears. I'm shooting with a long lens, and all I have to do is walk 30 feet over and line myself up with that rainbow and the surfer and the wave, and wow, this is great. When all of a sudden this happens, a whale breaches. I realize what I've done. With Austin's passion for surfing, for the whales, and his absolutely love of this place, it's all in this photograph. Every bit of it. I sat down and I cried. I couldn't wait to get home and print this photograph and present it to Shane and his wife Lori so they could hang it on their wall. Austin's soul, Austin's spirit is in this photograph. I felt his presence as soon as I took the image. Photography is so very powerful. Thank you all for letting me share my voice with you today. Thanks, Meech Workshops and NANPA. I really appreciate it.